From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I'm Doris Polo. Spain has granted Venezuela's request to extradite Enzo Francini Oliveros, who is wanted for a murder that occurred during violent protests 3 years ago. Venezuela's Attorney General Tariq William Saab took to Twitter to announce the decision. Enzo Francini Oliveros is accused of killing Orlando Jose Figuera during street clashes on May 20th, 2017. The victim was beaten, stabbed, doused in petrol, and set on fire. Francini was arrested on Monday in a town near Madrid. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza has called for the easing of U.S. sanctions against the country and also has given updates on the latest COVID-19 figures during a virtual press conference as he is currently in Russia on a diplomatic visit.
We share our experiences on the COVID-19 pandemic. We discussed the reality in Russia and how they are trying to overcome it. And we also talk about the situation in Venezuela, where unfortunately we have 38 deaths. But this number is low, thanks to Russia's solidarity, Venezuela's public health system, China's solidarity, and the help of organizations like the UN. We have been able to halt the spread of the virus. We agreed to exchange information with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov regarding vaccines and how clinical trials are progressing. Yesterday, we proposed the creation of a Russia-Alba forum to exchange knowledge. We think this will be of great importance for the region and also for Russia's foreign policy. We are calling the sanctions crimes against humanity, a general and systematic attack against the people of Venezuela, daily attacks against the country. What's worse is that the attackers have admitted it and celebrated it. We believe that the International Criminal Court could do something about it. On Tuesday, we delivered a letter to The Hague regarding the impact of the unilateral coercive measures against Venezuela. This letter also includes calls by the UN Secretary General, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, among others, for the easing of U.S. sanctions. The Red Cross has also made various statements, as well as other regional organizations. All of them are calling for the end of unilateral coercive sanctions against Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran.
Now, the COVID-19 virus has so far infected 4.7 million people across the Americas. The United States remains the worst-hit nation in the world, having reported over 2.4 million cases and over 124,000 deaths. Meanwhile, Brazil is the second hardest-hit nation worldwide, with over 1.2 million cases and more than 54,000 fatalities. Peru ranks 7th with over 264,000 cases, followed by Chile with over 259,000. A number of hospitals in Bolivia have partially closed their doors due to a lack of supplies and protective equipment. Thorax Hospital in La Paz said it will not reopen its borders or doors until all the necessary biosecurity conditions are in place, as 8 health workers have tested positive for COVID-19. A similar situation has been seen in Hollande's hospital, which closed its doors after 36 workers tested positive for the virus. Meanwhile, a number of labs have declared themselves in a state of emergency as they are lacking the proper equipment to process COVID-19 tests. Moving on, in Panama, the Ministry of Health indicated that on Thursday, 1,007 new cases of COVID-19 were reported.
The epidemiological surveillance system reports 29,037 accumulated cases, of which 1,007 are new cases. Panama has a lethality rate of 1.94% and 51% of patients have so far recovered, amounting to 14,800 recovered cases.
In some Caribbean news, St. Kitts and Nevis has recorded 10 additional cases of COVID-19 after police detained 13 Haitian migrants who entered the country illegally. The nation previously confirmed 15 cases of the novel coronavirus, with all people having recovered.
The police would have executed a search warrant in the Keys community and found 10 Haitians in a house and in the mountainside of Keys. They were handed over to the immigration department as they entered the country illegally, So they're illegal migrants. They're all males. We found, well, as I said before, we had 10 in the early part of Monday, and by evening we had 12, and yesterday morning we found another one. So we now have 13 adult male Haitians in immigration/police custody.
Concerns over overcrowding has led Haiti's President Jovenel Moïse to pardon more than 400 prisoners as the country battles against the novel coronavirus. A government statement said Moïse was acting on the recommendation of Justice Minister Lucman Delille. He issued the official order to release 415 ordinary prisoners under the Constitution, which allows the president the right to pardon and commute sentences. To date, the country has more than 5,000 COVID-19 cases and 89 deaths. CARICOM Chair and Barbados Prime Minister Mia Amor Motley has expressed the bloc's dissatisfaction with the political crisis in Guyana following the March 2nd elections. She was speaking during an exclusive interview with Trinidad and Tobago's CNC3.
Sent in 2 observer teams. Our observer team was satisfied that the recount process was certified by the persons from the Guyana Election Commission and stood as a credible basis for the declaration of an electoral result. What is going on is a little bizarre, to say the least, but we shall wait and see and let the process play out over the next few days. But suffice it to say that there's a charter of civil society within Caribbean community that causes us to have to aspire to a very high level of behavior with respect to free and fair elections and with respect to giving full effect to the will of the people. I pray that we will recognize that there is no election that is worth the life of a single human being, that there is no election that is worth the damaging of the reputation not only of one country but our community.
Staying in the region, Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister is seeking to allay citizens' fears that 39 cases of COVID-19 were recently imported into the country with the repatriation of nationals. He assures that the infected people do not pose a threat to the public.
The 39 new cases of imported COVID-19 have been detected and managed. I emphasize to you that none of these cases is a threat to the community at this time, and that through our identification, tracing, and quarantining process, the Ministry of Health is containing and treating affected persons. The 39 new cases are persons in which in excess of half are returning nationals who entered Antigua and Barbuda by air over the last few days. These nationals are now quarantined and isolated at the government facility at Hawksbill Hotel and will not be released into the community until they test negative. It is important that you know that none of these persons have been hospitalized. Presently, there is no one hospitalized in Antigua and Barbuda with COVID, and none of the new cases require hospitalization. The remaining individuals are in hotel properties which are equipped with facilities to isolate, monitor, and treat these individuals who tested positive for COVID.
We have more stories coming up. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. On Thursday, Colombian police announced that military personnel implicated in the rape and murder of an indigenous girl accepted their guilt. The news came from the Attorney General, who announced that his office has charged 6 members of the armed forces with raping a minor. The soldiers sexually assaulted a 12-year-old indigenous girl from the Imbera Chammi community on Monday, June 22nd. Colombian health workers held protests on Thursday demanding labor guarantees and biosecurity measures for the care of patients infected with COVID-19. The organizations held sit-ins in different hospitals to denounce what they called state abandonment. Union leaders also condemned the state's intentions to reactivate the economy. South Africa's Ministry of Public Health and Welfare announced on Thursday that the country has recorded more than 111,000 cases of COVID-19. 103 new deaths were also recorded over the last 24 hours, bringing the total number to 2,205. Authorities indicated that during the day, more than 34,122 tests were carried out in various cities. This comes as some provinces reported a lack of beds to care for the number of patients. Staying in Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo has officially declared an end to the Ebola epidemic that broke out in the east of the country in August 2018. No new cases of the disease have been reported in the northeast since April 27th. Some 2,280 people died in this latest flare-up, which is the 10th to have hit the country since 1976, when Ebola was first discovered. However, the nation is dealing with a fresh Ebola outbreak in the northwest.
Compared to previous epidemics, this one was the longest, most complex and deadliest. 2,277 people have died. I'd like to take this opportunity to express on behalf of the government all my compassion and saddest condolence to all the families who have lost loved ones. 1,171 people have recovered thanks to innovations in the fight against the epidemic and in research on a vaccine and medication.
The World Health Organization has hailed the announcement as a victory for science.
Ebola response was a victory for science. The rapid rollout of a highly effective vaccine saved lives and slowed the spread of Ebola. For the first time, the world now has a licensed Ebola vaccine.
Shifting gears now, a small-scale miner in Tanzania has become an overnight millionaire after selling 2 rough tanzanite stones, the biggest ever to be found in the country. Saninio Kurian Liza found the stones weighing over 9 and 5 kilograms respectively in the northern Mairani Hills and sold them to the government for nearly $3.3 million. Tanzanite can only be found in the northern Tanzanian region of Manyara and is a stone coveted by jewelers by their remarkable violet blue sparkle. Liza said he hoped to use the money to develop his community, including the construction of a school.
I thank my government for being supportive and for deciding to buy my tanzanite. This has given us more motivation as small-scale miners. We never thought the government would buy it, but today I can assure you that the government has really paid me and is taking all necessary measures to make sure that we as small-scale miners are benefiting from mining. With the money we are getting, we will give back to our community. I personally have set up 2 schools for children with the money I received from mining.
Now, as of Wednesday, Cuba has reported 2,319 novel coronavirus cases, of which 2,130 people have recovered, while the death toll stands at 85. Our correspondent in Havana, Nayara Tardo, brings us details on how this sanctioned Caribbean island has managed to successfully fight the pandemic.
These images were taken on April 1st by a team of specialists of the Tropical Medicine Institute Pedro Curie. Martha became the 9th patient to recover from COVID-19 in Cuba. After nearly 2 months of overcoming the disease and respecting all the security measures, we went to hear the story of the grandmother that beat the virus, that is devastating the world.
¿Cómo se siente Marta a los 95 años después de haber vencido el coronavirus?
Bueno, me siento muy bien. A mí no me ha dejado secuelas.
I feel very well. I do not have any after effects. I feel a bit tired sometimes, but I feel well. I walk with a bit of help. I have a walker to move around the house.
Martha was one of the first COVID-19 cases in the island. Her daughter Clotilde, dancer and choreographer of the renowned dance company Acosta Danza, arrived from Spain the first days of March. Yet she could not imagine what would come next. Clotilde was hospitalized together with her mother, but she affirms that seeing the favorable development of her mother made those days in the Health Institute easier.
Knowing what she slowly but surely overcome, how strong she was, that my mother did not have any serious problems, how well she was cared for, The most important thing for her is knowing two things, that Cuba is a special country, unique, and statistics proves it.
Martha could not avoid showing us her passion for football, for Barcelona and Messi. She affirmed that at these stages of her life, beating COVID-19 has been her greatest goal.
Siempre he sido fanática de la mayoría de los deportes.
I have always been a fan of most sports, even wrestling and boxing. But when I started to watch football, luckily I started to watch it with Barcelona's match. That's when I became a fan of football and Messi.
As Cuba shows positive results in the control of the novel coronavirus, this family from Havana appreciates the work of the island's health system, while insisting that the best way to control the spread of the disease is individual and collective discipline.
I believe that the only thing that we can do is take care of ourselves. And thank God we are the best country to do it. We have all the necessary conditions, and my mother is an example of it. There's no way to repay what has been done. I lived firsthand. I lived in the hospital, I lived with the doctors, with the health staff, super committed, super loving and super attentive, and super professional, well prepared. It is amazing.
Today, Marta is part of the more than 2,100 recovered COVID-19 patients in Cuba. As she shows me the beautiful view from her balcony in Havana's neighborhood of Vedado, she confesses that watching the sea every afternoon makes her forget the intense days when she had to fight against COVID-19. Nayara Tardo, Telesur, La Habana.
Grandma Martha beating the coronavirus with world-class healthcare in Cuba despite economic sanctions. We're taking one last break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Lufthansa's shareholders voted on Thursday in favor of the German government's bailout plan, which includes a €9 billion rescue package.
The Lufthansa annual general meeting has just voted by a clear majority to approve the German government's rescue package. That's very good news. Good news for the company itself, good news for the Lufthansa employees, and also good news for Germany as a business location. With the financial aid, the federal government is stabilizing a large German company that was in perfect health and has fallen into severe turbulence due to the effects of the corona pandemic.
Firstly, the state's stake serves only to stabilize Lufthansa. The state's quickest possible withdrawal once stabilization has been achieved is part of our common business basis. Secondly, there will be no political intervention in Lufthansa's business. The companies will continue to meet its responsibilities to all stakeholders, for the shareholders, the employees, for the customers, and also for society and the environment.
Für die Kunden und auch für Gesellschaft.
A huge explosion and orange fireball lit up the night sky in Tehran, according to the Ministry of Defense. It all occurred at a gas storage facility and fortunately caused no casualties. The fire, which took place in a non-residential area, was quickly controlled. Local media showed the aftermath of the explosion in daylight, with at least 2 large cylindrical tanks damaged by fire, along with a scorched nearby field. Moving on to Morocco, cafes and restaurants in Rabat reopened their doors on Thursday for the first time in 3 months. The government also allowed the reopening of gyms, hair salons and restaurants in the city at 50% capacity. All venues have to abide by social distancing and hygiene measures. Morocco, where a lockdown has been in place since March 20th, has reported 11,279 cases of the novel coronavirus and 216 deaths.
We follow the health measures. A committee came to guide us. As you can see, there is a duct tape between tables and 1.5 meters and more between the tables. Also, there are hygiene measures more than before, and we are making an effort.
A protest leader in southern Tunisia has been released 4 days after his arrest amid angry protests over unemployment in the region. Tariq Haddad is the spokesman for a growing popular mobilization underway in Tatooine, a town where protesters are demanding authorities make good on a 2017 promise to provide jobs. He had been arrested overnight on Saturday and charged with participating in a gathering likely to disturb the peace.
Tatawani has just one motto: Tatawani will never give up. We'll protect our country. Some people want to install chaos in the country. They've used huge amounts of tear gas, but we want to tell them that this country is both ours and yours. It's everyone's country, so stop the oppression.
And we end with news that Havana's blue sky turned grey after a dense cloud of dust from the Sahara arrived in Cuba. The desert dust continues its passage through Caribbean and parts of Latin America. Nayara Tardo has the story from the Cuban capital.
Cuban experts say that the greatest concentration of Sahara dust was produced this Thursday east of Havana, though the event, which happens every year at the end of spring and at the beginning of summer, had a significant relevance on this occasion. Although the sky already looks clear, some gray remains scattered in the horizon. Forecasts indicate that the dry cloud is headed down to Central America and Yucatan in the Gulf of Mexico.
It has been a very concentrated powder, which has come in that cloud. In Puerto Rico, for example, measurements have been taken of the concentrations over the past 20 years, and none has had the concentration that this has had. In 50 or 60 years, this is the strongest Sahara dust cloud we have seen.
In the fishing village of Casablanca in the east of the Cuban capital, residents are astonished by the pale view in the Caribbean midsummer.
You couldn't see the clouds, just the cargo ships. You couldn't see the cargo ships much.
I'm 76 years old, and never had I heard that in my life.
I just saw that the sky was very gray.
In Havana, the temperatures rise, and while the dust of Sahara moves away from the island, health authorities insist on using respiratory protection due to the damage that this may cause, especially in the midst of COVID-19. Health experts say that this phenomenon has an effect on the formation of cyclones, as dry air inhibits the formation of clouds, notably weakening them.
A plume of dust or Saharan dust blanketing the Caribbean. That brings us to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for Telesur English. I am Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.